Okay, everyone, we are so excited. This is our first webinar for BridgePoint. So thank you for all taking the time out to join us this evening. I'm going to start with some housekeeping. So it is being recorded, and I just want to make sure everyone's muted. So check in the bottom left-hand corner where the phone symbol is, and just click on that to mute yourself. If any questions come up, please type them in the chat section. You can either, it will prompt you, you can either text it openly where everyone can see your question, or you can text it or chat it just to me. And either way I can answer it. We really want your feedback. I want your feedback and suggestions for whether this was helpful. Are there different things that you'd like to hear or see out? And if so, please just let us know. And then if this was helpful, please donate to us so that we can continue to offer more opportunities like this to learn. I'm just going to pause it. Someone still has their sound on. If you can check and make sure you're on Zoom, you're muted, that would be fun.
I'm going to fix it.
I actually want to acknowledge that this webinar on recovery is not going to be all-inclusive and exhaustive, obviously. Recovery is a big topic. We've got less than an hour. And as those of you who've come to BridgePoint know, we could take any one of these topics and dive deep and spend lots of time on them. So this is an overview. It's a place to start, an opportunity for each of you to check in with yourself, check in with your loved ones, and start a conversation with yourself and each other, okay? So what is recovery? Well, we could do, there we go. Recovery from an eating disorder. In the literature, recent literature, recovery from an eating disorder is defined as the ability to adapt and to self-manage in the face of social, physical, and emotional challenges, with an overall tendency towards growth in psychological well-being and adequate symptom remission. And that is a handful and a mouthful. Whew. So we could go with that definition. It sounds a bit sterile to me. So I want to know what really is recovery all about. Because this is us diving into the experiencing, having it get into our bones. Okay, so recovery is unique. Many would like if I could give you a prescription, do A plus B plus C and you will achieve recovery. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. Recovery, you will decide what recovery looks like, the pace you go at, and it has to be that way because each of us is so unique that to do anything different would be to not honor our uniqueness, if that makes sense. So you didn't choose to get an eating disorder, but we do choose recovery and we do choose to get better. And it's a practice. Recovery is practice. And practice being perfectly imperfect on the journey. So often at BridgePoint, we use the phrase, the magic is in the mess, and that is so true. The messy part is where we're gonna learn and do our most growing. So if you're in a messy part of your recovery, celebrate, because it means you're doing some growth. It's also not compromising your health or betraying your soul. You've probably all heard the saying, fake it till you make it. Well, that's not what real recovery is going to look like. Instead, the saying has to be face it till you make it. When we choose to show up and be seen and live brave, which the process of recovery demands of us, and this is not an if, this is a when, you will get your butt kicked, okay? And then you get back up. You practice, you use those tools, you learn what's working, what's not working, you reflect, get our butt kicked some more, fall down, get back up. Kind of like that Chumbawamba song. Okay, so key number 1. Motivation, patience, and hope. I fall 7 times and I stand up 8. Lack of motivation doesn't mean that you can't get well. Dealing with ambivalence is a part of the recovery process, okay? I mean, who wants to embark on moving from the known to the unknown and speaking the unspoken? I mean, every part of our body is going to want to protect ourselves from taking these kinds of risks. Those that know me will know the word I'm going to use next, because that is just darn vulnerable, isn't it? Yes, it is. And every cell in our body is going to say, don't go there. Because what's vulnerability? It's risk, it's emotional exposure, and it's uncertainty. And if we're in that, we're not going to want to go there. And yet that's exactly where we need to go. So it makes sense that at times we're going to be ambivalent. We're going to have questions about, do I really want to do this? Maybe I'm fine with the way things are. Benjamin Franklin once said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. So like we spoke about earlier in defining recovery, change and recovery is an active process rather than something that just happens. So often when in eating disorder recovery and treatment, often one of the pieces that a treatment team will look for, is behavioral change and early behavioral change, because we all know we can profess and we can proclaim our desire to change, and then there's actually the doing it. And we do have to become active in doing something different. And that can look like starting to identify and question and challenge those thoughts and beliefs that maintain us not doing change. So things like those statements like, not just yet, or it doesn't matter if I binge now, I can start tomorrow, or the infamous when blank, then blank. So when I lose this much weight, then I can blank, blank, blank. When I feel better about myself, I'll then blank. Doesn't work that way. It's kind of, rather than an this, then that, it becomes a both and. So while yes, waiting for that to happen might help you make change, making the change will also help that happen, okay? The infamous chicken and egg question, which came first? And it's both and. Some of you might have heard us at BridgePoint talk about the 5 stages of motivation and readiness for change. It's been used a lot in smoking cessation work, but it's important for us to check in with ourselves and really honestly check in terms of where we are in our recovery journey. So are you in a place of pre-contemplation? Everything's fine, I don't need to make any change, it's all good. Contemplation, well, I'm thinking about making change, I don't know what that would look like. My eating disorder is still really helpful to me right now, and I also hear what people are seeing and saying and what I'm feeling in terms of dizziness, lack of concentration, lab works, all of that. Preparation is, I'm going to go out and I am going to sign up for a webinar like you did tonight. I am going to do some research about different treatment options. I'm going to start talking to people and asking questions. And then action, doing something different. And finally, maintenance, which is how do I take the change I make and continue it long term while life continues to throw stress and curveballs at us. So we often talk about how do you take what you've learned at BridgePoint and carry it forward and continue to practice it once you're out of outside our walls, because it becomes a real challenge. It becomes a lot harder when you've got multiple demands. Everyone has their own agendas. You have multiple stressors. And so how do you remain focused on using the tools that you use, whether at BridgePoint or not? We have to move out of black and white thinking, the all or nothing thinking, and live in the gray, which again is a vulnerable process because it's not guaranteed. Because recovery is not a linear process. We're not going to get from point A to point B. This is a great opportunity to practice self-compassion and staying out of comparison. You can only go as far and as fast as is right for you at this moment. So actually, each of your loved ones is exactly where they need to be at this moment. Another activity that might be worth considering is thinking about a day for you in your life without the eating disorder. You could draw it, collage it, write about it. This is about starting to dream about, what are you doing this work for? What do you hope will be different? Okay. Someone says, sorry, I'm just going to pause. Someone says it's glitching. My goodness. I hope that you can get back on. Let me know if you continue to have difficulty with this awesome technology, which took me forever to figure out. Oh, someone's raised their hand. Do you want to type a question? Or someone's just raising their hand? I'll keep going until I see a comment. Key number 2, your healthy self will heal your eating disordered self. I love this saying, and I said to my body softly, I want to be your friend. It took a long breath and replied, I've been waiting my whole life for this. Recovery is not between you and anyone else. It's not between you and your loved ones. It's not between you and BridgePoint or your treatment team. The battle you have to fight, the recovery you're working for, is inside of you. It's between your healthy self and your eating disorder self. Oftentimes people, eating disorder self, and or you can call it that critical voice inside. Okay? The goal is not to try to get rid of your eating disorder self. Making enemies with our eating disorder self is not going to be effective for long-term change and recovery. What we want to do is befriend it, to learn from it, discover what it's doing for us, and then strengthen our healthy self to take over its job. Okay? When we get curious, we gain awareness and become wise to the eating disorder's tactics, one of which is amnesia. When we're in our eating disorder, we tend to forget about evidence for any story other than the one that supports the eating disorder. So when we're in our eating disorder struggle, oftentimes all the stories that prove that I'm enough, I'm lovable, I'm capable, I'm just as I am, all those stories, all that evidence goes out the window, and the only evidence that the eating disorder allows to filter into our brain is that which supports the story. So once we get curious about how the eating disorder has been helpful in our lives, we've actually had people here at BridgePoint say, I would not be alive today without my eating disorder. It's helped people survive. It's helped people through traumas and overwhelming emotions and unimaginable events. And so it's allowed them to get here. And once we get curious about that, then we can do something different. Well, someone is saying they're only hearing half of what I'm saying. Okay, let me know if anyone else is having a problem with this. I'm also trying to speak slowly. Who knew how nervous you could get doing this? So key number 3. Key number 3 is it's not about the food. We often talk about, or have that saying, it's about the food and not about the food. This was a meta-analysis done, which what that means is it was an examination of data from a number of independent studies on the same subject, and they were looking for trends. And they found that there was a number of fundamental criteria for recovery from an eating disorder. So you'll see there's 3 columns. One was for strong evidence. These criteria were strongly connected with eating disorder recovery. Then there's moderate and insufficient. Food is on there if we put it under the improved eating disorder behavior and cognition piece, but that's only 1 out of 12 that has strong or moderate evidence in the recovery process. So its overall role is, it's a small piece, okay? Most of the recovery criteria that are listed here are focused on psychological well-being. And psychological well-being is not about happiness or positive affect, emotion, but in literature they explained it as living a good life with purpose and meaning, growing towards optimal functioning and self-realization. This kind of blew me away when I looked at the right column. Look at happiness. Insufficient evidence that is fundamental in recovery. So oftentimes people are disillusioned and discouraged when they find that they still often aren't feeling happy. That's okay. You're not always going to feel happy in recovery. What I like about this slide is it reminds us to pay attention to all the other slides, if that makes sense. Not about the food. Key number 4, feel your feelings and challenge your thoughts. Oh yeah, a little bit of animation there. I like my slides. Courage over comfort. If we're going to feel our feelings and challenge our thoughts, we're going to have to go into that uncomfortable place. And it's going to feel daunting and feel courageous at first. For those of you who have been to BridgePoint before, one of our team members often reminds us that emotions that are buried alive stay alive. We need to feel our feelings. They're called emotions, emotions, and our energy that are in motion. Brene Brown, sorry about that. Brene Brown gives us a roadmap on how to manage these feelings, which can often feel overwhelming. 3 things that we need to do to manage emotions as we're learning to feel them and work with them. One is we've got to give ourselves permission. Permission to feel the feeling. Many of us grew up in families where that was not the case. So first and foremost, take out those permission slips. At BridgePoint, we use permission slips that literally say, I give myself permission to blank. On this card, you're writing to feel my feelings. The second tool is breathing. Let's take a moment. So important, free of charge. You can do it anywhere, anytime. Working with our breath sends signals to our nervous system. Like a quick breath in is like the gas pedal. It moves us into fight or flight, ready to move. And a slow, long, deep exhale invites a deep inhale, which slows things down. There's a program called Heart Math, which has shown that when we work with our breath, our thoughts, and our feelings, we can actually influence our nervous system and the hormones that are sent out into the rest of our body. So breath helps the motion of emotion. The third tool is mindfulness. Some people, and I know even Brene Brown talks about feeling uncomfortable with that word. So she uses the phrase paying attention. So we want to pay attention and without judgment, okay? We've got to get curious about what's got us hooked into the emotion, hooked into the story, okay? Unfortunately, there's no selective numbing, okay? There's a full spectrum of human emotions, and when we numb the dark, we numb the light. We can't choose joy and try and numb fear. We're going to numb everything. If you want to feel the joy, you're going to feel the fear and the sadness and the whole range of emotions. So challenging our thoughts. Some of you might have heard of distorted ways of thinking. Examples are, I mentioned one, all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking. That's one distorted thought process. Another one might be overgeneralizations. We can often find those in when we use the words never or always. It's kind of painting a really broad stroke across the whole experience or thought. Another one might be discounting positives. Oftentimes that shows up when people are receiving compliments, the yes but. There's a number of cognitive distortions that we have to be aware of so that we don't believe them. Thoughts are just thoughts. Unfortunately, what happens is we end up believing that those are truth. The story becomes fact, and it's not. One of the phrases that I found really helpful in reminding myself that thoughts are just thoughts is when I'm talking about my thinking, I start with the phrase, the story I'm telling myself is, or the story I told myself. The story I told myself was that if I let you see this part of me, you wouldn't want to be my friend anymore, that I wouldn't be lovable, that you would fire me. Whatever those stories are. And our job is to get curious. Start challenging the thoughts. What's the evidence? Now again, there's going to be evidence that supports the story, and guaranteed, if you are looking for evidence to support the story, you will find it. If you want to find evidence that you don't belong, that you're not worthy, that you're less than, we will find evidence. And there is a plethora, that'll be my word for today, a plethora of other experiences that show evidence to the contrary, that there's another story or multiple stories that we're not paying attention to. So we've got to get curious about those. While you're going through this process, one of the pieces, one of the activities to have at hand for yourself is ensuring that you're taking care of yourself, because this is a big process and it takes a lot of energy, physically, mentally, psychologically. So you might consider having a self-soothing kit, or discovering ways that you can self-soothe yourself. We can look at all our senses, whether they be taste, touch, smell, hearing or sight, and see what is soothing for you. Maybe it's a song, maybe it's knitting or crocheting, maybe it's going to an art gallery, or for me, one is listening to doves. Find what soothes you. There's also a whole bunch of apps coming out. So experiment with those. See what fits for you. Well, we've got to come back to the food because it is about the food. What are your food rules? Rules can give us a sense of control and assurance that nothing bad or unexpected will happen. If we believe we can't trust ourselves or our bodies, I mean, it only makes sense that we would develop rules. Sometimes these are consciously made, sometimes these are not, but these are to keep ourselves safe and in line. At BridgePoint, we believe that dieting doesn't work. Frequent dieting disrupts our body's natural relationship with food. It tends to lead to weight gain rather than loss and stands as one of the primary predictors of eating disorders. So when we compare the majority of our culture is in what we would describe as a diet paradigm. And what that is it's a place where there is the thoughts and the behaviors are inflexible. It's very prescriptive and rigid. There are good and bad foods. There's rules. Oftentimes it's about deprivation. Oftentimes it's fear-driven, guilt-inducing, shaming. We end up with body hatred, hunger, temptation. It's not a great place to be. At BridgePoint, we embrace a non-diet paradigm. So we want our relationship and we want our participants' relationships to be flexible, welcoming all foods. It's supportive, it's enjoyable. There's comfort, there's confidence. It feels natural, freeing, pleasurable, kind, nurturing, nourishing, forgiving, satisfying, and it builds trust. That is what creates recovery when we look at our relationship with food. There's two ways to look at it. 95% of people fail diets, or 90% of diets fail people. This is a multi-million-dollar industry. And if it worked, it would be out of business. So we have to get curious and very critical about looking at what messages we decide to embrace. Here at BridgePoint, we provide participants with food. They decide how much and what they're going to eat. They're also, we provide a variety of foods, but participants are also encouraged to bring whatever foods they want to bring that they feel they need, whether it be snack foods, safe foods, binge foods, whatever they decide they want at hand while they're going through this process. Key number 6, changing your behaviors. You're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. Dr. Seuss. I mentioned it at the beginning. Recovery is an active process that requires you to both look at overt behaviors, so binging, purging, restricting, and other behaviors that also sabotage recovery. Counting calories, food rituals, comparing yourself to others, body checking. Some of us have that piece of clothing that we can only fit in if we're a certain weight, and we use that as a measurement of success. Changing our behaviors is the process of literally building new neural pathways in the brain. We're manually overriding every time we do something different. It's moving from the well-worn, trusted, and known path and venturing onto the unknown space where we can create a new pathway. I often use the analogy or example of the train. And when the train wants to change tracks, a person literally has to get off the train, walk over to this big metal beast sticking out of the ground, and they're hoping this lever isn't rusted, broken, iced up, jammed, whatever, so that they can manually pull this lever and shift the track so the train can go down another path. Every time we do something different, we're manually overriding our old neural pathways of ways of doing things to create something different. And every time we do it, that path gets stronger and stronger. We often start our retreats and our modules, all our work, with the log story from Anita Johnston. She talks about this log that we hold on to in this raging river because it keeps us afloat. And yet then we see the other side, and that's where recovery is, and we want to get there, but we can't because the log now, the thing that saved us, is holding us back from getting to shore. Changing our behaviors is that act of practicing to swim around the log. We're practicing using our coping strategies, distractions, interrupting negative self-talk, communication. We might be trying different foods on, setting boundaries. This is the work of swimming around the log. We also talk at BridgePoint about the 1 degree change. A tiny shift of 1 degree can lead to a much bigger outcome over time. Remember, it only takes 1 degree change in temperature to convert water to steam or water to ice. This is such a tiny change, and yet most of us ignore making these types of minor changes because we think that the effect it's not going to make that big a difference. I mean, we often want to have that instant gratification and instant results. When in fact, if we look at this plane, a number of small changes just in the correction of route or course that the plane is going to take, and if we make those changes day in, day out, it will lead to a massive difference in our lives and a very different destination. So practice doing 1 degree of change. We're not going for 100%, 1%. Key number 7, reach out to people rather than your eating disorder. My favorite word. Eating disorders thrive on secrecy, isolation, and judgment. To reach out to others is a vulnerable process. Think of vulnerability like the dial on a radio. And when we dial up, when we do more vulnerability, we're actually increasing the likelihood of connection and true connection. We all know the difference between fitting in and really belonging. I often use the example of this. Fitting in is, you like Justin Bieber, I like Justin Bieber. We're just going to go along with that so that we can all fit in. You like Saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies? I would like Saw. But actually I don't. I would prefer Garth Brooks. And I would prefer Moana. So when we're able to belong, that means we can have differences. We don't have to agree on everything, and yet we can still be in a relationship. So increased vulnerability increases connection. And the same is when we decrease vulnerability, we invite more disconnection, okay? This is the paradox of vulnerability. It's the first thing I look for in other people. That's what draws me to people, but it's the last thing I want to show. And it's the last thing I want you to see in me. So at BridgePoint, we also talk about a concept that Brene Brown introduced me to called the marble jar person, which is, I say person, not people, because it's quality over quantity. So people have to earn the right to hear your story. So people need to show you that they can hold your tender emotional parts and that they will care what happens to you and how you feel, and they will value your connection enough to keep things to themselves. Your marble jar people, your friends, your friend, is the person that over time in small intimate gestures has shown you that they have earned the right to hear your story. So part of reaching out, I encourage each of you to think about who is your marble jar person. What do they do to earn marbles in their jar? And if you don't have a marble jar person right now, is there someone that has potential? Because we can help people become marble jar friends. Key number 8, finding meaning and purpose. This question seems a little weird. What are you recovering to? We've spoken a lot of time, taken some time in this webinar to talk about what have you been recovering from. We need to also know what we're recovering for or to. First order change, we can all do behavioral change. I can do something different. We can all do that. That's called first order change. But what happens is, unless we go to second order change, we are going to be white knuckling it. So when I talk about second order change, this moves from I'm doing something different, but essentially I stay the same, to I am seeing things in a completely new way. Often second order change requires new learnings, and it takes us deeper into our beliefs and values. A great activity to do here is to check in, reconnect with your values. What do you value? How do you protect your values? Who in your life helps support? I imagine, you know, when it's really windy and you go out, if you're a smoker and you go out to light a cigarette, sometimes you ask for support in like blocking the wind. We need those people around us that also protect our values, that help us with that. What do we do that helps us live our values? And then what are the red flags, white flags? What are the warnings for you that you've stepped away from your values? Another great practice is gratitude. Start a gratitude journal. At the end of the day, beginning of the day, 1 or 2 things. Over time, this is also a new neural pathway we're going to build in our brain. Most importantly, what I want you to know is recovery is possible. More and more research is showing that recovery is possible, that people are recovering fully from eating disorders. Again, it's going to look different for absolutely everybody. And that's the exciting thing. You get to make this yours. You get to own it and claim it. Embrace it just for you, from you to you. So some of the resources I use today, of course, anyone that knows me knows I will be talking about Brene Brown. Jenny Schaefer, if you don't know her, she has written a number of books. She has a website with lots of great resources. Carolyn Costin. But there are so many options out there. There are podcasts, there are webinars, there's websites, there's books. Go and search and find what speaks to you, okay? Because there's a lot of material out there that can shore us up during this journey. We don't have to do it alone. We need our people, but we also need materials like books and music and apps on our phone that can remind us to check in and do a gratitude. Find what works for you. With that, I'm at the end of my presentation. I want to open it up to questions, and if anyone has anything they want to ask or share, you can, I think you can either unmute yourself, or you could type it in the chat section. This is my first time doing this, so we'll see. No questions? Okay. If you have ideas about what you'd like to see next, or if you want me to take one of these topics and dive deeper, we can do that. If you'd like to know more about a certain topic, or about coming to BridgePoint. If you haven't come to BridgePoint before, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Our number here is 306-935-2240. We're here usually 9 to 4 every day of the week, and then we have phones open late Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, so you can always call us in the evening if that works better for you. We also have email, voicemail, whatever is easiest for you, okay? Oh, I have a question. How do I know I'm actually on the road to recovery? That's a great question. My first response to that would be to say, once you decide you're on the road to recovery, you're on the road to recovery, right? This is a personal, unique piece that once you choose it, you're going to choose it. And it's not going to be linear, it's not going to be straight, and it's going to throw you some curveballs. And you might even feel like at times you step out of it and then you step back in. So first and foremost, I think your mindset around, hey, I am in recovery, I am doing this, is the first step. Someone also asked, how is someone supposed to cope, sorry, I just need to move this over, cope with the strength of an eating disorder after pregnancy? That's difficult, especially with, I don't know how young a little one is. Having an eating disorder doesn't make someone less capable of being a great mom. Those two, no. It is an extra struggle because to try and be present for your little one, if you're not nourishing your body well enough, then it's really hard to show up for anybody else, okay? And at the same time, the little one can be, the eating disorder can use your little one as a great distraction, an excuse not to take time out to nourish yourself, feed yourself, you know, socially, physically, mentally, all those pieces. Most importantly, reach out for support. No one is supposed to do recovery alone. All of you are doing your own recovery, but you have to have a team of people with you. And that can include family and friends. It can include faith communities, pets, okay? You do not have, and then your medical team, your dietetic team, whoever, your yoga instructor, whoever you need in your court, reach out, ask for help. I hope that helps. You can also call BridgePoint. The nice thing with our retreats is it's only 4 days. I'm not sure where you are, you know, post-pregnancy. So we have 4-day retreats that we often invite people to attend. That lets you get to know BridgePoint, and then, or if you've been to BridgePoint before, it's a great opportunity to come back, take time out just to reconnect with your commitment to yourself, reevaluate, do things need to change, what's working, what's not working. And then we have longer modules. We have a 30-day module and then a 2-week module too. We're also doing these webinars once a month now. The next one is April 18th. And then we're starting some new programs. We are actually going to be going into our first equine program in April. So if you've come to a retreat or a module before, those become an option for you. If this one is full, but if it is a success, we'll be definitely doing it again. So we're looking for new opportunities to offer different modalities for you to have support and while you're going through this recovery. Yeah. Any last questions? We've just got a couple minutes left. Thank you so much for coming and joining and being patient while we worked out the glitches at the beginning. I hope everyone was able to hear most of what was going on. This was recorded, so we're going to have a link if people want to watch it later. I'm not sure. I will talk with Carla whether we're going to post it on our website or have it available for people. But if you want to go back and watch it again, you certainly can. One final question. How do you know once you have finished feeling a feeling? For example, oh, sorry, Carla says, I'll try and post it and email it out. So the last question is, how do you know you have finished feeling a feeling? For example, sadness. So how do you know when you've finished feeling a feeling? Usually, we're going to feel, our body is going to give us clues. So we're going to feel a shift in our energy. We're going to feel a change in our breathing, our temperature. Our body posture. We're also going to see a shift in our thoughts. The process of feeling feelings is not a do it once and get it done and it's all done.